Gary, so much for all the talk from our cricketing friends that they weren't after any special treatment. Given the numbers of India, people wanting to come home, if we've got half of this first cohort on the first repatriation flight barred because them or family members have tested positive, it's going to take us a long time to get these Australians home, isn't it?
Yeah, and how's that? How's that? They are wanting to be with the people. No, not really, because let's face it, you end up at Howard Springs and full of people who've come from India, you'll never escape cricket talk. So they want a nice, quiet quarantine process across 3 CBD hotels in Sydney. Gee, I hope they've got the aircon systems working right in those places and it doesn't then lead to another outbreak of this coronavirus in metropolitan Sydney just to keep the superstars of cricket happy. I am a big fan of Australian cricket. I am tragic about it, but I've lost a lot of interest in recent years. The money's too big and the egos are even bigger. And, I think poor old Michael Slater probably will rue the day how his reputation got ruined by those tweets he put out, Peter.
Hey, you are absolutely canny to have picked up that point about putting the cricketers in with the Australians coming back from India, because I was in Mumbai one time with Sachin Tendulkar. The craziness that was happening in the street outside the stadium, I totally understand the point. I'm actually sympathetic to the poor old cricketers wanting to be in the Sydney CBD. Anyway, we'll see what happens when they arrive on Sunday.
Why not?
What did you make of the big speech last night? It was the pitch, and it could well be the last budget address in reply we see from the opposition leader, given the timing of an expected poll. But it was his big pitch last night. Interestingly, it was a pitch to his base. I mean, the people that he needs to bring over to vote Labor are not going to vote because of a plan to give away all of this housing to low-income families or women and domestic violence and those sorts of things. I was surprised. He really must be under some pressure to have pitched so hard to his base. And he's, of course, been accused of a bit of plagiarism today. Let's have a listen.
Do you feel better off than you did 8 years ago? Do you feel more secure at work?
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago?
When did you last get a wage rise?
Is there more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago?
Are you finding it easier to pay your bills?
Well, he's no stranger to plagiarism. I'm going to show that at the top of the show. Gary, what did you make of it all?
Ronald Wilson Reagan is my favourite American president in my lifetime anyway. I know Donald Trump was great, but Reagan was the man. I've got a bust of him at home, Peter. Make of that what you like. There's no bust of Albo going in the Hardgrave library, I can assure you. Look, poor old Anthony, if he's after the base, does he really know what it is? Because I come, like you, from some rugged background. There's a lot of people in my family who've been union officials involved in very blue-collar industries, so there's no silver spoons in my family background, and none of them would relate at all to anything that Albo said. It had a real chip on the shoulder thing. It's like a whole bunch of Labor millionaires got together and said, what are we going to do for the poor people? Oh, I know. We'll buy them a $300,000 house, which, of course, only buys you a garage in outer metropolitan Sydney. It doesn't buy you a whole house. The block of dirts that you want to buy around Brisbane, they're $300,000. If you could find a $300,000 block of dirt, you'd be very, very lucky. They're all $400,000 and $500,000. So what's the $300,000 and whatever dollars out of this $10 billion that he's announced? It is pie in the sky piffle. It is designed to get a nod amongst all of the same set that he hangs around with, that inner city, leafy suburbs, cafe latte, socialist sipping set, whatever you want to call them. These people are completely out of touch. And if I was a Labor base voter, I'd be saying this mob still haven't worked it out. How many times have we got to vote against them for them to get the message? I guess at least one more time.
Look, if you're an aspirational person in Western Sydney or parts of every capital city, you're trying to get ahead, you're raising your family, you're going to resent your taxes going to help 30,000 favoured few to get a $330,000 home. Now, there's no issue with rent assistance if people are doing it tough and low-income housing, for housing commission, those sorts of things. No issue with that at all. But the idea that someone swans in and says you're going to be gifted this house because you've won this frontline pandemic worker lottery decreed by the Prime Minister, I think it's completely un-Australian. It's an absolute thought bubble. Like, it is an absolute thought bubble, and I think you'll pay a price for it. It's right up there with cash for clunkers. I want to stay in Canberra. Because we've got Ken WYATT, the Minister for Indigenous Affairs. He's out there saying today that Australians are ready for a public debate on the reconciliation. He was launching a book by Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg, which is pushing very hard for this idea of the voice to be put to the Parliament for a vote, enshrined in the Constitution now. And WYATT says there is a public mood ripe for change. Now, I think these two better get out of their ivory towers. I have a better sense of the pulse out there with the real world. I think there is no way known Australians would vote for division in their constitution at this point in time.
And never will. I mean, Peter, you've nailed it 100%. The point is it's divisive. This whole conversation is divisive. All of us, as people who don't have an Aboriginal heritage, are embarrassed, upset, angry that there's been many generations of first Australians, Aboriginal Australians, who've had heaps of money thrown at the problem, but no problem's been solved. I'm gravely concerned about the gap between education outcomes, the equality of opportunities there, but there are health issues, there's family issues, there's societal issues that none of this is ever repaired, and actually then creating yet another elite, a small group representing the whole, presuming to speak on behalf of all Indigenous Australians. There are so many different views, as it should be. It's an incredibly pluralistic cohort of Australians. We should be listening to their concerns, dealing with their problems, but this stuff is paternalistic and it's just a nonsense, a total nonsense.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes. We will see where that goes. All right, let's go up to Queensland, your neck of the woods. The former top cop, the one who put in place this really controversial affirmative action scheme, even after it was slammed this week by the state's corruption watchdog, absolutely thrown out. He is still trying to back it in. Ian Stewart, he's left the job, but he says Queensland Police has got to be more diverse, got to be more inclusive. The Crime and Corruption Authority found that his whole 50-50 gender equity target was unlawful discrimination, and it stripped the opportunities from 200 meritorious men. I can't believe the bloke's out there trying to defend it today.
Yeah, look, Ian's still doing some work for the Queensland government, and fair enough. I know Ian Stewart fairly well. I've got his mobile, he's got mine. I don't have, many bad things at all to think about him. I'm disappointed by this whole thing, but he got basically played by the Palaszczuk era. I think he was appointed by Campbell Newman, but he got played. He fitted in with their whole kind of take offence and be affirmative. And I mean, I reported a couple of weeks ago on my program, which is on again tonight at 9 o'clock. I made the point that a woman I was talking to in the Queensland public sector thanked a bloke who opened the door and said it's nice to have a gentleman around. She faced an inquiry from the human resources manager of her department for using sexist language. So, this is the environment of the Queensland public sector. Any wonder Ian Stewart is reflecting it in his comments today. He's still got to earn a living in Queensland.